the New Patriotic Party. His Excellency is a notable businessman and a devout Christian. A lawyer by training, he has held numerous positions in the public sector of Ghana. He served as Member of Parliament, Attorney General, and Minister of Justice, and most recently as the Minister of Foreign Affairs. The President enjoys cricket, football, reading, and conducting voluntary work in the area of human rights. President Akufo-Addo is married to Rebecca, daughter of the Speaker of the Parliament of the Third Republic of Ghana, and he is a father of 5 children and with 5 grandchildren. And so, ladies and gentlemen, let's give him a warm welcome and wish him Happy Father's Day as he's chosen to spend it with us. His Excellency, Nana Akufo-Addo.
Yes, I think. Eminent clergy, Prime Minister of Jamaica and members of the Jamaican government, representative of the leader of the opposition, dignitaries of the Jamaican state, Ghana's Minister for Tourism, Culture and Creative Arts, and members of the Ghanaian delegation, Group CEO of Grace Kennedy Limited and Conference Chair, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. I thank the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade of Jamaica for the invitation to deliver these remarks at the 8th Biennial Jamaica Diaspora Conference during this brief visit to Jamaica. I'm honored by it, and it is certainly good to be back in Jamaica. I extend the condolences of the people and government of Ghana and of my own behalf to the family, people and government of Jamaica over the recent loss of the outstanding Jamaican and Caribbean statesman, Edward Seaga, whose protege, the youthful, excellent Prime Minister of Jamaica, the Honorable Andrew HOLNESS, MP, has given my delegation and I such a warm and hospitable welcome to Jamaica. We're grateful, and equally so, for the very fruitful and valuable discussions we've had with the Prime Minister and members of his government. We pledge to each other our determination to ensure that those discussions give rise to concrete actions of cooperation. My last visit to Kingston was in October 2005, when, as Ghana's Minister for Foreign Affairs, I led the Ghanaian delegation to reactivate the Ghana-Jamaica Permanent Joint Commission for Cooperation. We decided at the session, amongst others, to formalize the collaboration over matters relating to the management of our bauxite deposits. We also discussed how to operationalize for that year the Joseph Project, whose aim was to reconcile and unite the African peoples on the continent and in the diaspora, and to release their energies to help build Africa and the Caribbean. In that visit, the then government of Jamaica, and I'm happy to see Prime Minister P.J. Patterson here, was also kind enough to make a plane available to me to fly to visit the Maroons in their present habitat at Akompong. The joy they exhibited when I told them that an Ashanti, that is His Excellency John Agyekum Kufuor, was at the time the President of Ghana, is a memory that will live long with me. Nearly a decade and a half later, I'm back again, this time in an elevated capacity, i.e. President of the Republic of Ghana. And it is good to see that the passion with which Jamaicans spoke about reconnecting with the motherland then, as far back as in 2005, has not waned. There continues to be the recognition here in Jamaica, as so eloquently put by the legendary reggae musician Peter Tosh, that, and I quote, "Don't care where you come from, As long as you are a black man, you are an African. Indeed, Simon Newman, in his book, The West African Ethnicity of the Enslaved in Jamaica, says, and I quote, "Evidence suggests that the Gold Coast, now modern-day Ghana, was the largest source of Jamaican slaves who arrived, remained, and survived in Jamaica," unquote. Even though archaic now, the English name that was used for enslaved people from Akan ethnicities in Jamaica was Coromantee, derived from Coromansi, the small fishing village in the central region of Ghana where a slave fort is located. Today, amongst the Maroons, you'll find a Tuesday-born male called Kobna, spelled C-O-B-E-N-A, just as you will find in Ghana, albeit with the unadulterated spelling, i.e. K-W-A-B-E-N-A, Kwabna. Other names such as Kwashi, i.e. Kwasi, Kujo, i.e. Kujo, i.e. Kwajo, Kwaku, i.e. Kwaku, i.e. Kwaku, Ekwao, i.e. Kwao, Kofi, i.e. Kofi, and Kwamin, i.e. Kwamna, which are frequently used all over Jamaica, are day-born male Akan names, i.e. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. There are equivalent female names: Akusia, Adjoa, Abna, Equia, Ya, Efia, and Ama. You will thus agree with me that the ethnic affinities that tie the peoples of Ghana and Jamaica and the many aspirations and principles we share create a solid basis for the exchange of knowledge and the requisite expertise. That is why I applaud the brilliance of this initiative, the Jamaica Biennial Diaspora Conference, currently in its 8th edition. Prime Minister, ladies and gentlemen, right from the day when Ghana got her freedom and independence from British colonial rule on 6th March 1957, the first sub-Saharan state to do so, we have always seen ourselves as owing a special responsibility to Africans in the diaspora. Indeed, our celebrated first president, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, was self-confessedly heavily influenced in his Pan-Africanist thinking by the thoughts of one of your most famous sons, the national hero of Jamaica, Marcus Mosiah Garvey Jr. In pledging himself and the fortunes of independent Ghana to the total liberation of the African continent and to the cause of Pan-Africanism, on that historic occasion, Kwame Nkrumah named Ghana's first shipping line in 1957 the Black Star Line. Indeed, 38 years earlier, a shipping line called Black Star Line was incorporated by Marcus Garvey, leader of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, UNIA, to bring Africans back in the New World to Africa and also to facilitate trade to and from the continent. Garvey himself had taken much of the inspiration in his Back to Africa movement from the initiative of the mid-19th century freed American slaves who went back to Africa to found the nation of Liberia. They might have started as slaves, but the contribution of Africans to the development of the Americas and the Caribbean is matchless. I do not refer just to the slave labor that built American railways and American industries and generally American infrastructure, as well as those of the Caribbean. I refer also to the role of Africans in innovation, in science, in sports, in music, in the arts, and in the fashioning of the Americas and the Caribbean. I looked up and took a few of the inventions that Africans in the Americas have to their names and which have improved life for all humanity. I cite these in no particular order of importance: caller ID, caller waiting, the fiber optic cable, pacemaker, mop, suspenders, ice cream scooper, lawnmower, ironing board, blood bank, folding chair, automatic gear in vehicles, sanitary belt, walker, tissue holder, gas marks, traffic signals, world's fastest computer, voice over IP, closed-circuit television. Try and think what life would be without my random list. In the sporting world, Africans in the diaspora have shown that they're not afraid of hard work and discipline. Football, athletics, and many other games have been taken to new heights thanks to the efforts of the descendants of those who were forcibly transported to the Americas. And allow me to get personal here. I love cricket, as you've been told. I follow cricket keenly, and I know that as a cricket lover, Jamaica has produced some outstanding cricketers. Let me pay homage to George Headley, Jerry Alexander, Lawrence Rowe, the great, elegant fast bowler, Michael Holding, a.k.a. Whispering Death, Jimmy Adams, Jeffrey Dujon, and Chris Gale. In the field of athletics, I paid tribute to Ray Stewart, Herbert McKinley, Arthur Wint, Safo Powell, Shelley Ann Fraser, Price, and Usain Bolt, the greatest of all sprinters. Prime Minister, I refer to Frederick Douglass, one of the greatest of all Americans, when he says that slaves sing best when they are most unhappy. If that is so, then the world has a lot to thank the black people in the diaspora for much of the music that has kept the world going in the past 3 centuries. All the great singers and entertainers of the past 100 years acknowledge Africa as the source of the rhythm and lyrics of their music. Reggae gets new converts every day. Let me recognize some of the Jamaican reggae greats who have kept us entertained. Bob Marley, who took reggae single-handed into the heights and breadths of the world. Peter Tosh, Gregory Isaacs, Jimmy Cliff, Bunny Wailer, Burning Spear, and Buju Banton. We're happy that Bob Marley's widow, Rita, has found a home with us in scenic Aburi. We were happy that Maya Angelou spent a considerable part of her youth with us in Ghana. And we are proud that W.E.B. Du Bois found a home in Ghana and is buried in our soil. Ladies and gentlemen, the picture that has been painted and the story of Africa that has been told over the years have been of poverty that merited charity. Africa is the place for charities and NGOs to practice their trade, and the battleground for debates in the developed countries on the size of aid budgets. We've had global music concerts organized to collect donations on behalf of Africa. Every celebrity singer and actor of any standing has held out a begging bowl on behalf of Africa. Documentaries and films have been made showing the most miserable death to which humanity can sink in a bid to extract donations in support of Africa. Aid has made no difference, and we've remained poor. Indeed, we're ranked as the continent with the poorest people. The irony of it all is that our continent is generally acknowledged to be the best endowed in the world. The great rivers of the world flow through our continent, and so are the lakes and the dramatic waterfalls. We have breathtaking deserts as well. We have minerals that the rest of the world will kill for, and all the minerals that are needed to run modern economies are in our continent. Indeed, 30% of the Earth's remaining minerals are in Africa. We have fertile lands, we have picturesque and captivating landscape, and useful and interesting plants, and we are still home to what is left of the big animals on our planet. Today, Africa has the youngest population in the world, and we have the human resource that has provided the manpower for many civilizations. This is the background to my insistence on the African capacity for self-reliance. I've been advocating for Ghana and indeed an Africa beyond aid. Simply put, I just want us to have more self-confidence and accept that we shall never reach the level of development we aspire to by relying on aid or external assistance, no matter how generous. It is a mindset that I wish us to discard, a mindset of dependency and living on handouts, which are unhealthy both for the giver and for the recipient. When I talk of Ghana or Africa beyond aid, therefore, I'm simply insisting that we use our resources to build robust economies that can give a good, dignified standard of living to Africa's 1.2 billion people. With a schedule to reach 2 billion by 2035 and propel us into the ranks of the developed nations of the world. I'm insisting that we stop believing that our deliverance would come from a benefactor. I'm insisting that we take our own fate in our hands and work to bring us to where we do not look for or expect charity. This is not an unrealistic aspiration. It is very well within our reach. At Niamey, capital of the Republic of Niger, on the 7th of July next month, the African Union is holding an extraordinary summit, which hopefully will declare the date and mechanism for the coming into force of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. The necessary 22 nations, led by Ghana and Kenya, have ratified and deposited their instruments of ratification with the AU Commission, which enables us now to bring the treaty into effect. With a market of 1.2 billion people and a combined gross domestic product of 2.5 trillion United States dollars, the CFTA will eliminate high tariffs, generate employment opportunities for a rapidly growing young workforce, and harmonize the work of our regional economic communities. The United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, UNECA, projects an annual growth of 52.3% in intra-Africa trade when the AFCT becomes operational. With the substantial progress that our continent is making on many fronts, I stand firmly with those who say that Africa's moment has come. Prime Minister, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you must have heard by now that we have declared this year, 2019, as the year of return in Ghana. We are marking the 400-year anniversary of the arrival in 1619 of the first enslaved Africans in the Commonwealth of Virginia, which was to become part of the United States of America, initiating some of the most barbaric episodes in human history, the transatlantic slave trade and slavery. It has been 400 years of a remarkable history of unassailable triumph over unbelievable adversity. The black people have built and contributed to the success of the Americas and the Caribbean. And even though they did not willingly make the journeys in the 200 years of the slave trade, once here, they were and have been an integral part of the success in their new homes, even though they have not benefited as much as they should have from their toil. For many of the millions of the descendants of these unwilling travelers to the Caribbean, Africa remains a continent of deep emotions and unresolved questions. We want to make Ghana the focus for this anniversary to enable Africans in the diaspora have a target area to come to. Ghana recognizes its unique position as the location for 75% of the slave dungeons built on the west coast of Africa, through which the slaves were transported. We have a responsibility And we do extend a hand of welcome back home to Africans in the diaspora. We're hoping that the year would prove to be a joyful and learning experience all around for all of us, especially in affirming our determination that never again should the African peoples permit themselves to be subjected to such dehumanizing conditions. Sold into slavery and have their freedoms curtailed in order to build up forcibly countries other than their own and create wealth for the peoples of unknown lands, to which they were sent, wealth from whose enjoyment they were largely excluded. We also want to use the events of this year to solidify our relations with our kith and kin, descendants of Africa, here in the Americas and the Caribbean. We kicked off the year of return with the launch in Washington, D.C., in the United States in October 2018. It continued with the December 28 Full Circle Festival, involving over 70 African-American celebrities visiting Ghana to reconnect with their ancestral heritage. They were able to view Ghana and indeed Africa from their own lenses and were able to eat, feel, see, and wear Ghana. The Homecoming and Investment Summit, the African American Investment Forum, the Pan-African and Emancipation Day celebrations, the Film Festival, the Full Circle Festival, and the Durbar from Jamestown to Jamestown are some of the activities that will be held to commemorate the year-long event. I've brought you several copies of the provisional program for the year of return, setting out the prospective dates and times for its activities. Please come and sample Ghana. Make the return journey a happy and joyful one. The year of return awaits you all. Now is the time to engage each other positively and imbibe in ourselves a deep consciousness and understanding of the goals and history of the African peoples. It says on the last door, leading out of the dungeon from the slave castles that dot our coastline, door of no return. Let us show we can return. We have returned. And we have conquered the humiliation and degradation of 400 years ago. I look forward to many Jamaicans taking up our invitation, and I wish you fruitful deliberations in this 8th Biennial Jamaica Diaspora Conference. Thank you, and may God bless the peoples of Jamaica and Ghana and the other peoples of Africa and the Caribbean.
Ladies and gentlemen, what excellent remarks. They celebrated the ties that bind, they underscored lessons that we have learned, and they have inspired with possibilities for the future. One more time, please. At this time, we would like to once again, because we can't big them up enough, mention our sponsors. Special thanks to our legacy partners, Grace Kennedy Limited, the Jamaica National Group, J. Ray and Nephew Limited, and the Victoria Mutual Group. Please help me. We also have our premium partners, NCB Capital Markets Limited and the Best Dressed Chicken. And of course, our official partners, the Caribbean Airlines, the Jamaica Tourist Board, and JAMPRO. And we now get ready for our keynote address. The Most Honorable Andrew Michael Holness was first elected as Member of Parliament to represent the constituency of West Central St. Andrew at the age of 25. Now in his fourth consecutive term as MP, Mr. Holness is Jamaica's youngest Prime Minister to date and the first born after national independence. Mr. Holness has pledged to build real partnerships with the private sector, civil society, the diaspora, the opposition, and international partners in order to achieve the vision of shared prosperity for all Jamaicans through inclusive economic growth and meaningful job creation. He is married to Juliet, who is a Member of Parliament for East Rural St. Andrew, a chartered accountant and a real estate developer, and they have 2 sons, Adam and Matthew. So, can you help me welcome our Prime Minister and wish him a happy Father's Day? The Most Honorable Andrew Holness.
Thank you for that introduction, Paula. And before I start, may I also take the opportunity to wish all the fathers gathered here a happy Father's Day. His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo, and I will dispense with his official title afterwards and say my friend. Your remarks, as obvious by the standing ovation, was very well received. They were genuine remarks. With which I concur and which I feel has represented here to the diaspora, not just of Jamaica, but truthfully to the diaspora of Africa, that Africa has a new dawn, a new future emerging, of which we must all be a part. I will abbreviate the salutary protocols, but you know, I'm the Prime Minister, so I have to at least follow them, if only in brief. So, my friend Anthony Hilton, yes, he's my friend, representing the leader of the opposition. I'm biased, but I will say it anyway. The best Minister of Foreign Affairs we have had. Senator the Honorable Kamina Johnson-Smith, and other members of the cabinet who are here. The Most Honorable Percival James Patterson. Very good to see you, Prime Minister, very good to see you. And of course, we just say PJ. The Most Honorable Professor Sir Kenneth Hall and Lady Hall, very lovely to see you here this evening. You're always such good patrons of this event. For every time that I have been here, you have been here. Very good to have you. Excellencies of the Diplomatic Corps, thank you so much for attending. Senator Don Webby, Group CEO of Grace Kennedy Limited and Conference Chairman. Very good presentation, sir. And keep investing. It is a particular point of pride for me to be able to say to President Addo that there is a Jamaican company investing in Ghana. He was quite surprised. But I felt such great pride to say that we have global companies that are investing all over the world, including in Africa. So yes, I'm to give the keynote address, so here's the first key point. Invest in Jamaica and invest in Africa. Agree with that? It's a key point of the address. So I could very well depart the stage, but I have some other key points to make. It is indeed an honor and a privilege for me to address you this evening on this very special occasion of the opening ceremony of the 8th Biennial Jamaica Diaspora Conference. Let me also especially welcome our members of the diaspora who are joining us in cyberspace, those who are listening to us on various social media platforms. Welcome. Today is also significant in our history as we commemorate Jamaica Diaspora Day in honor of the tremendous contributions made by our diaspora members to the development of Jamaica. Let me say that I've been following very closely reports in the media about the diaspora engagement. And the reports have usually centered on the fact that we have not been able to achieve meaningful engagement. And I would challenge that because just by the statistic that you have, is it 50 new projects this year? 40. Well, it could be 50, but it's 40. Conservatively 40 new projects this year. When previously we could only boast 5 or 15. Now we've had this great explosion in engagement. Certainly, something is happening that is positive in the diaspora. But more than that, we must never underestimate the value of our diaspora in ensuring that the economy of Jamaica remains strong, even in the depths of a recession. I will never forget in 2009, when Jamaica was just slipping into the global recession, like many other countries. And yes, remittances fell, but it was those remittances that kept coming, that kept many households afloat. And as soon as things improved, indeed, even before things improved, our remittances started to improve. That is, yes, the ultimate sign of your commitment to your country, more so to your family and to your community. But a few years ago, when I was Minister of Education, I got to understand in greater depth the importance of the diaspora to the development of Jamaica. What the diaspora has done for our education system. With the schools that you have built, the bathrooms that you have built in our schools, the books and the computers that you have sent, the exchange programs that you have sponsored. Some of you have even come to Jamaica at your own expense to teach in our schools. The literacy programs that you have undertaken. Not to mention what you have done for sports. Track and field in particular, the pen relays come readily to mind, but we could call so many other projects that you have assisted with. I will never forget, as Minister of Education, addressing members of the diaspora in New York. And there was a very passionate lady who came to me to say, Minister, I have been trying for years to send an ambulance to Jamaica. special type of ambulance with all kinds of technological gadgets and health equipment. And I just can't get it sent. But you know what, Minister? I am not going to give up. The hospitals and health clinics that you have helped, the number of operations that you have sponsored, and medical missions that you have indeed taken your own time to participate in. We cannot place a monetary value on that. We're very grateful, we're very appreciative, and we don't join this argument that there is no constructive engagement with the diaspora. The diaspora is an organic body. It operates on its own rhythm. It will work even better with government coordination. But even without government coordination, you are Jamaican, some of you by birth, some of you by association, some from the generations. And you understand the vibration of Jamaica, and you want to feel a part of that. And I will change my term, not to give back, but to give forward. And so I encourage you to keep that special Jamaican-ness, that vibration that keeps us together. I could not have this august body of our diaspora present and not give you a report card. I'm not the one marking the exam, I'm just giving the report. So some of you may have gotten lost in Kingston. Some of the roads may have changed. Or indeed, some of them may have been blocked off, but you're seeing the work on the ground. The government is very serious about improving our infrastructure. We want to genuinely make Kingston not just the capital of Jamaica, but we feel that it is the central city in the Caribbean. We want to make Kingston the center of trade and commerce of the Caribbean. We want to make Kingston the center of arts and culture and entertainment. We want to make Kingston the business center, the finance center of the Caribbean. And to do that, we must have world-class infrastructure to accommodate that kind of traffic. And therefore, we have started. We have started with the major infrastructure development program, which you would have seen is doing an amazing job in improving access roads into Kingston and major thoroughfares within Kingston. That program has also assisted with improving infrastructure for water and sewage disposal within the city. We've had a major problem this year with old infrastructure, and then that was complicated by a drought. We have learned a lesson from that. Whatever infrastructure we're going to build in Jamaica, it will be resilient. The infrastructure will be able to withstand shocks, those that are unforeseen and those for which we can have some measure of expectation. So we're not just putting down roads, we're putting down resilient roads that can withstand hurricanes and floods. We're not just putting in the water supply, we're putting in the water supply that will accommodate the expansion of the population with storage so that drought, which is inevitable, will not deprive the citizenry of our country. On top of that, we are planning smart infrastructure. So we're not just putting down roads and putting in resilient infrastructure. We have to make it a smart city. So we are also ensuring that as we lay pipes, we are laying telecommunications infrastructure as well to facilitate the smart city. And we understand that the development cannot be in Kingston alone. There are parts of Jamaica which, for centuries, and certainly since our independence, we have not been strategic in trying to stimulate economies in those areas. So those of you who are from the eastern part of the island, those of you who are from the parish of St. Thomas, let me hear it. Yes, the time for St. Thomas has come. So we will be starting with a 14-kilometer roadway, dual carriageway, and then we will be improving the road right through to Port Antonio. That project is now in the contracting phase. The contractors have put in their bid, I gather, and the bids are being evaluated. And as soon as that is complete, works will begin on ensuring that we have a good road to St. Thomas. And you know what is said about roads, eh? The road to development begins with a road. But as my good friend, the former Chinese ambassador, pointed out, that roads mean connectivity, and economic growth depends on connectivity. So we're not just building a road, we're making sure that the road connects to something. And that is why we're now building a new town center in Morant Bay. So it is the deliberate effort of the government to push investment and push commerce and eventually housing into the eastern part of the island. That is also necessary because we're making some investments in Kingston which we don't often would associate with Kingston because for so many years our infrastructure has deteriorated and we have had this issue of crime. But Kingston was a tourist destination in the 50s, indeed in the early part of the 19th century. And we intend to make Kingston, again, once more, a destination for people to visit, not necessarily for an all-inclusive resort destination, but for people to come and genuinely experience the true culture of Jamaica. We have so much to offer. Let me encourage, before I say what I was about to say, let me make this statement. And Mr. President, Mr. Prime Minister, you will appreciate what I'm about to say. We have estimated 1 million or more Jamaicans in the diaspora living in the United States. If we get 50,000, that's too much. If we get 30,000 per year traveling back to Jamaica to come and visit the Institute of Jamaica. How many of you have ever visited the Institute of Jamaica? I would encourage you, whilst you're here, to pay a visit to the Institute of Jamaica. There is a wealth of knowledge and information and artifacts there, history. To visit our National Gallery, one of the best in the Caribbean. Of course, you're all going to visit Bob Marley Museum. But when you're finished, you could now go and experience our world-famous Jamaican Blue Mountain coffee in the hills of East Rural St. Andrew. There's so much to do around Kingston, but we have hidden the gems that are here. And now it is time for us to build the infrastructure that will expose them. We are also making, finally, a major investment in Port Royal. You know, Port Royal is the basis of the movie series Pirates of the Caribbean. It's the basis of other movies about pirates within the Caribbean. It is, once called the richest city in the world and once called the wickedest city in the world. It is said that from Port Royal, the pirates went and invaded Panama, took over that. Well, of course, Panama was not Panama then, but from that little city, the Spanish trade of gold and other bounty fell prey. And that is why Port Royal became the richest city. But there is so much history there. It is the only preserved sunken city in the world. And we are going to make an investment in that city. But we're not going to disturb the heritage that is there, the historical artifacts that are there. We're not going to disturb those, we're going to preserve those. Our principle is that if we leave this heritage there unused, then it might end up being abused. We might end up losing it, which has been the case for many years. Our principle is, it is in use that we will protect it. It is in use that we will make it valuable so that the man and woman who lives in that community can realize that this is what generates my economic independence, my livelihood, and therefore I must now become the curator, the preserver, the protector of the artifacts that are there. And so we're making that investment, and we're making it in that light. We have already made an investment in a particular kind of pier that will anchor cruise ships, which will in no way affect the ecosystem and the environment there. And we have already started to do designs for constructions that will happen there. And it will become a port of call for cruise ships to once again come into the port of Kingston. We will return the ferry system from Port Royal into Kingston. It will mean greater employment for the people who live in that area. And we will be able to have economic benefit from our history, even if we were not able to have it at that time. But we will be able to utilize it now. There's another keynote which I would want to share with you. Over the last 3 decades, Jamaica has seen an almost geometric rise in homicides. But that is just half of the story. the full story is that in the last 3 decades or so, we have seen an unabated rise, even acceptance of violence in our society. And we have to look at ourselves and address this uncomfortable subject. And it will require members of the diaspora to help us with this conversation about violence in our society. Because there are some deep-seated, long-held cultural issues which are used from time to time to justify violence. And many of you who have now found your homes in other societies would have gone through experiences that would have shown that many of the things that we hold on to here in Jamaica are not necessary anymore. And I speak, for example, of the issue of corporal punishment, beating children. Many in the diaspora still, and certainly many people here, hold on to the view that the use of physical punishment was beneficial to their own personal development, and would be very reluctant to support any other view. But as we are now much more informed that not only does it have a generally negative impact on the psychology, on the outlook, on the emotional development, and on the imprint of violence which people end up projecting onto generations forward. But there are other ways of instilling discipline without violence. And it is very important for members of the diaspora to start having that conversation. So when you call home to answer questions about how is the remittances spent, you might very well want to start a conversation. How are you disciplining young Joy? And that's a very powerful use of the diaspora in helping to carry along that conversation about how we change our society. There are other things, for example, that the diaspora could be useful in having that inter-household exchange. You know, there is a major problem with the sharing of information with the police. And we know the informer and that culture, what should happen to him in that culture. But we can't keep doing this cycle of violence and expecting to see a reduction in our homicide rates. There has to be a genuine confrontation about supporting law enforcement, providing information to law enforcement, and allowing law enforcement to do their work and supporting them in their work. And I believe the diaspora can have a very powerful influence in that conversation, in that call back home. And I became sensitive to that because during a certain event which placed me here, and in talking with persons during that event, I was told that, you know why I'm going to vote for you? Because my son said. And when I inquired, so where is your son? Oh, he's not here. He's in New York. So the members of the diaspora know what I'm talking about. You are a very powerful influence on your households back home. And so a key message that I would like to deliver to you today is to use that influence to help Jamaica overcome the epidemic of violence and crime that is holding back our society. I would clap for that. Yes, I know it's a bit profound and it's going to get you thinking. But I can't have a body like this here. Family. And, you know, Mr. President, they will say, why am I addressing this with the President of Ghana here? But you are family. You are family. And the truth is that we have a closing window. And we have to be moving very quickly to resolve these issues. The government has made significant investment in our national security. We're spending close to 20 billion Jamaican dollars this year, the highest that has ever been spent on national security in Jamaica. Why is this? And we're doing this now 2 years running. Why have we made national security the priority in budgetary expenditure? The truth is that our national security architecture is not sufficient to the challenges of the modern world. We look at ourselves as Jamaicans as a small state. We're big in certain things, in sports. We have an amplified voice on the world stage. We're known. But the truth be told, that were there to be an epiphenomenal event, that Jamaica would not be able to stand on its own. Our dependency is not just on economic issues, but we also have to be able to secure ourselves, not just from the conventional threats, but from the new and emerging threats. For example, in the cyber domain. We have to be able to protect our borders. Yes, we are a small landmass, but we have 24 times the size of our landmass in sea space to protect. And where are we located? Where is our sea space? Right in the center of the Caribbean. Anything moves, it is likely to pass through Jamaican waters. And if it is going to pass through Jamaican waters, it may very well seek to stop here. And if it stops here to be transshipped, it will need protection. And that will mean criminal gangs. And some of the contraband might stay here or might become the destination for trade, guns for drugs, human trafficking, and others. We have to build the national security architecture to protect our nation. And so we are making that investment. And I want to say to the diaspora, Jamaica is not just looking at itself as a small little country of no consequence in the middle of the Caribbean. We recognize that there could be threats that we don't even know will happen, that we have to start to prepare for. And so we have put in place Plan Secure Jamaica. That is working very well. That is a comprehensive view of Jamaica's national security, not just about crime, but securing our banks, securing our ports, securing our telecommunications, securing our tourism, securing our new logistics operations, securing our BPO sector. And that as well within the context of climate change and resilience. Recently, in 2007, this region was affected by 3 Category 5 hurricanes. It destroyed several Caribbean islands. The island of Barbuda was totally flattened. It affected Puerto Rico, St. Martin, the BVI, and it wiped out Dominica. I got a frantic call from the Prime Minister of Dominica that law and order had broken down in the country, looting had started, and he needed assistance. Now, one would have thought that that call would have probably gone to the United States or to Canada. But bear in mind that the United States was also hit at the same time, and that there were several other islands that needed help. We were not able to move our disaster preparedness team into Dominica. I see High Commissioner Peters here. And with the help of the Canadian Air Force, we were able to airlift 120 first responders from the JDF to assist the government of Dominica. So when we're talking about national security, crime is a part of it, issues of violence, but there are other issues that could plunge a nation into crisis, for which we have to be prepared. And so Jamaica has to start now to take very seriously these issues. A catastrophic hurricane or any other natural disaster could threaten our national security, and we have to be in a position to respond with the necessary equipment and trained personnel. So I want to assure the diaspora that the government here is taking national security seriously. The last key point that I want to make to you, we're making investments in infrastructure, we're making investments in national security, we're dealing with the social issues, particularly violence, but we are now seeing the fruits of the collective sacrifice for fiscal discipline. Our interest rates are the lowest they have been in decades. In 2013, our unemployment rate was 16%. Today, I'm pleased to report that the last figures tell us it is now 8%. Youth unemployment was 35%. The last figures tell us it's 21.8% now. In 2013, thereabout, our national debt, some people say it was 151. I'll be conservative, it was probably about 141% of GDP. Today, we are expecting it to be at 96% of GDP. Each time you look at the international reviews, firstly, they used to say, you know, Jamaica, a basket case. Jamaica is now success story. You know, all the multilateral agencies praise Jamaica for the incredible work that has been done in turning around the economy. And we can genuinely say that it has been a collective effort, a bipartisan effort, a true partnership in securing our economy. But now we have to get to the next phase. we have to get growth. Because we've had about 16 quarters of growth, but I won't write to you about it. Because the growth has been below 2%. In fact, this year we're expecting to get 1.9% in the fiscal year. Hopefully we'll probably crack that 2% ceiling. Jamaica's true growth potential, with all that we have, all that we have just mentioned, all the investments we're making in infrastructure, in national security, in our macroeconomic reforms, we should be growing at about 5%. But we are not yet at our true growth potential because there are some things that we still have to refine and get better. The ease of doing business, that continues to be a perennial complaint. But I wish to assure you that the government is redoubling its effort, and we are seeing improvements in many of the markers of ease of doing business. Public sector bureaucracy, corruption, those issues continue to occupy the mind of the government, and we are making the necessary investments in those institutions to ensure that we can bring corruption under control and improve public sector efficiency. Ladies and gentlemen, today I wanted to deliver to you a balanced scorecard, a truthful scorecard as to where your country is and what will likely be the future. You can make a determination as to whether or not the country is on the right path. My view is that yes, we are on the right path. It is also my view that we need to move faster than we are doing now. We might have to increase the reggae beat a little bit. We might have to increase the tempo, the pace, and make that bass a little rounder to get that pulse going a little faster. We need to have more investments happening in Jamaica. The field is well laid for it. The institutions are in place. We invite members of the diaspora to now seriously look at Jamaica as a safe and profitable opportunity for investment. And that is not just my view. Bloomberg has said so for 2 years. The Jamaica Stock Exchange, which is usually, a stock exchange is usually the foreteller of what is to come in the economy, because it is the best aggregator of economic information. And with the stock market doing so well, it is clear that the future of investment and the Jamaican economy is good. So on that note, I leave you again with the invitation. Jamaica is open for your business. So yes, I want you to come back and be tourists in your land, but I want you to come back and be investors in your land as well. God bless you, and I'll see you again in 2 years' time.
Mr. Prime Minister, thank you so much for connecting those dots for us. First, in a way that shares not just your vision of Jamaica's future, a vision that I think we share, in a way that will help us to tighten our resolve, figuratively, wiping our noses, because if we want good, nose. But also, secondly, with those connected dots showing the psychological changes that are necessary for us as a nation, and how not just financial contributions, but conversations can help to make that happen. Thank you so much. Again, ladies and gentlemen, our Prime Minister. At this time, I invite Ambassador Marcia Gilbert Roberts, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, to bring the closing remarks. Let's welcome her to the lectern.